Hey everybody, KC here. So there was an interesting piece the other day in the Washington Post by a former reporter for the Post named Bradley Graham. As it happens, Bradley Graham, I don't think is related to the Graham family that owned the Washington Post for so long before they sold it to Jeff Bezos. It is funny that his name is Bradley Graham, since Ben Bradley, spelled differently, was the longtime and much celebrated editor of the Post. Anyway, the piece basically is about the fact that in his post-journalistic career, Bradley Graham is a bookstore owner. He's an independent bookstore owner. He owns 3 stores called Politics and Prose in Washington, D.C., and they're much loved, much celebrated bookstores down there. And one of the things he was writing about is the fact that, just because he and Jeff Bezos both are in the book selling business doesn't mean they're the same. And part of his argument is that when you were to go into now they're all closing, right? But when you were going into a physical Amazon bookstore, the books that you saw there were basically chosen because they were popular on Amazon's website. So it was basically curation by algorithm. And he would argue that an independent bookstore owner, they're doing curation by some sort of guiding intelligence, right? They're looking at the world and of books, and they're choosing the ones that appeal to them or they think that's going to appeal to their audience. They're making recommendations in a very different kind of way. Now, he would take the position that his way is better than the Amazon way. I just think they're different, and it depends what, as a reader, you're looking for. But I do think the most important word is curation, right? Any store that's in business that really wants to have an impact and appeal to its shoppers needs to be in the active curation, which doesn't mean sometimes, you don't necessarily have to have 40,000 items in a food store. Maybe you have to do a better job of curation based on what you know about your shoppers, not just what they've bought in the past, but how you gauge their interest based on the data. Some combination of algorithm and individual intelligence. Where I think independents sometimes fall down is when they're not doing enough curation and they're just carrying what everybody else is carrying. And I think that not necessarily a fatal mistake, but it's a mistake that diminishes their value in whatever the community is they happen to be serving. I did think there was one really important passage in what Graham wrote, that he's writing about the independent bookstore business. But I think if you changed a few words in here, it could appeal to any independent retailer. He writes that Amazon's retreat from the physical bookstore business underscores what those of us who are in it know all too well. It isn't easy. It requires superb customer service, dedicated staff who provide knowledgeable advice about what to read, an exciting or inviting environment in which to browse and shop, and literary activities that connect patrons directly to authors through book talks and other programming. And most of all, it demands a deep commitment to the local communities that sustain us. Again, substitute some words in there, and that's almost a manifesto for how independent retailers should approach their businesses. But it's interesting. Amazon's a complicated business. And there was a neat piece in the New York Times the other day that talked about how Amazon actually, through its Audible division, right? Audible is where you can listen to books. They're actually getting into the theater business. They have created a theater division. They've released 93 audio theater works. They added a theater tab to the app and has become a big player in the theater world. They've actually commissioned new work from 55 playwrights. They're presenting 25 shows in person at the Minerva Lane Theater in New York City, which it's leasing, and it's becoming one of the most active commercial producers in the city. Audible took on the entire season of the Williamstown Theater Festival in 2020, remotely rehearsing and recording all 7 shows when the pandemic made it impossible to stage them in person. It's got producing credits on 2 current Broadway shows, both of which they're on stage, but they're also going to make them available via Audible. And the pace of which they're producing these things and making them available is only increasing. So, it's really complicated because on the one you want to say Amazon is this, enormous behemoth that is kind of just eating up everything in its path, right? And absorbing so much business and disrupting so many other people's businesses. On the other hand, they're committing real money and real resources to making works of art available to many more people that might have access to them otherwise. Just when you think you could slot Amazon in this lane, because oh man, look at all the terrible stuff they're doing to other retailers. You find out they're doing something over here that is admirable. Again, a complicated business. It's not so easy just to say they're good or they're bad. Sometimes they can be good, sometimes they can be bad. And it'll be interesting when it's all done, when the history of this time is written, and they do a measurement of whether was Amazon good for the culture and good for the economy, bad for the culture, bad for the economy over the long run. It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. I hope I'm around to see it. Anyway, that's what's on my mind this morning. And as always, I want to hear what's on your mind.